Now's the time, Chip, that you get to start to curse and swear because the recording is on. Okay.
Okay, perfect. The Leighton show's PG-13, so I don't think you have to worry about that.
Which, when we grew up, though, PG-13 meant something totally different. And I've shown
Yeah.
my kids some PG-13 stuff, and they're terrified. It's like, okay, forget it. Welcome to the Company of Dads podcast. I'm your host, Paul Sullivan. We're focused on lead dads, working moms, and how small changes at home or work can have a big impact on their lives. Each episode promises to deliver actionable advice on some area of concern at home or at work. Short, direct, again, actionable. Now, we usually do 5 questions and 5 answers, but our guest today is someone I've long followed and laughed with, and I'm just going to see where things go. We're talking to Chip Leighton, my absolute favorite TikTok dad. He's the host of The Leighton Show, in which he says everything that any 40 or 50-something married dad with kids would like to say, but is afraid to because then his wife and kids won't talk to him again. But he does so in this amazingly gentle and endearing way. The texts that he posts from his teenage children are relatable to any father. He's got a new book coming out, Dad, Can You Not? A Dad's Guide to Being Less Cringy. It's following on to his New York Times bestseller, What Time Is Noon? Welcome, Chip, to the Company of Dads podcast.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for that great introduction, and I'm looking forward to it.
So, as I said before, anybody who's seen my podcast before, you're watching, I never have worn a hoodie in my life. I wore a hoodie for you. You are not wearing a hoodie. I think I'm being cringy right now. Am I being cringy by trying to wear a hoodie to emulate you?
I think the hoodie's the last thing you got to worry about in terms of being cringy, Paul. I have a little piece of the book about threatening to start a podcast is a way to really make your kids horrified. So don't worry about the hoodie.
All right, thanks for putting me there. Now, why do your kids still text you? If I were your kids, I wouldn't ever text you.
Well, they barely do. So the history of this thing is I started out posting my own kids' texts, and it kind of caught on, and then people started putting their own kids' texts in the comments section and then messaging me, and so it's kind of evolved into this platform where people send me stuff and hopes that I'll feature it, and so almost everything is from other people at this point. So it's worked out pretty well because my kids are getting older now. I only have one teenager at this point, so it was a good jumping off point, but now it's kind of gotten bigger.
I love it. So let's go back into you touched on it there. I mean, how did this, all start? I mean, in the intro to your new book, your kids say something like, Dad had a good corporate job and he threw it all away for this. But how did it tell the genesis? Tell the story of how the Leighton Show began.
Yeah, I mean, it started innocently enough. It was I guess it was early 2021, COVID, and TikTok was relatively new then, and I just started using it because I thought it was a cool platform where anybody with no following can post something, and if it's engaging enough, it can go to thousands or millions of people. So I thought I could, maybe be funny. My daughter and I would sometimes watch it together at that point, and so I just started putting some stuff out there. I never thought anybody I knew in real life would ever see it, and it didn't go that well at first. I was trying to do weird, funny stuff, and after 6 months, I had 17 followers, and I was actually thinking about deleting the account, and then I ran into my sister-in-law. I was like, "Oh, you haven't posted anything in a while?" And I was like, "Yeah." I posted this thing about marriage, and it went totally viral. And then a couple weeks later, I posted the first text for my teenage daughter, and that went viral. And so I kind of figured out that I should be posting about my own life, and there's lots of other people out there that relate to it. And so that's kind of what unlocked it for me.
Yeah, but you're being modest. I mean, I wonder, were you the funny guy at work? I mean,
No,
you weren't.
Not really. I mean, but people that know me well would say I'm funny, but I'm not I wasn't the class clown. I'm not I'm very introverted. So this definitely surprised people. The people at work were, I mean, keep in mind, this was relatively early TikTok. So when I started to kind of go viral, people would I never told anybody I was doing this. So they would be like, "Hey, you popped up on my TikTok the other day. Is everything going okay? Are you all right? What's happening here?" And so it was a little bit awkward for a while there. And but no, you would no. I'm definitely not the person you would expect to do this. And it's different because it's I don't know. I'm filming stuff by myself in my living room or whatever. So it doesn't quite kind of feel like being out there. But obviously at this point it is a little bit out there. So.
All right, let me just give a little context for the listeners. I mean, you have millions and millions of followers. Your posts being engaged by hundreds of millions of people. But I looked you up on LinkedIn before, and you literally have 791 connections on LinkedIn, which is crazy because you are, for people that don't, you went to Bowdoin. You just told me you played squash. We were both NESCAC guys. You then went on to Duke and you got an MBA, and then you worked at a major, I don't know if you want to name it, but a major supermarket chain for the better part of 2 decades. So you had a really great, career kind of moving along. You live in Maine. What was the point where this thing starts to get traction and you go to your wife or you go to your kids and you say, I think dad is going to chuck aside his MBA, forget those years. I'm going to go and become a TikTok star.
Yeah, no, good question. I mean, I took a while to think about it. So I've been doing it for a couple of years, around, and it was still taking off. I was getting like some media coverage, and then I was trying to think of what to do next. And I ultimately, after talking to some people and thinking about it, decided I wanted to write a book. And so I was like going through the process of trying to get a book deal. And like, I knew at some point, like, and I'm just doing this stuff at night and on the weekends. And my job was like very much a full-time job. So it was, it was a lot to do it all at once. And I knew like I'd never be able to really see where this could go unless I devoted more time to it. So and I'm lucky because I started doing this at like age 50. And so I'd had a successful career to that point. I wasn't like quite ready to retire, but we'd saved a lot toward retirement, and I didn't need to be like, I could take a sort of a step back here, and do something different for a little while. And so yeah, I made the decision to leave. That's when I started to get obviously a lot of feedback, especially from my daughter. Like, yeah, she's I could probably read what's in the intro here, but it was like, you kind of referenced it earlier, but it was like, okay, yeah. So, of course, given his job, our dad is even cringier than the rest of you. He literally mortgaged our future so he could be an influencer. Quit a solid paying corporate job in your 50s so you can film insufferable TikToks in a pathetic attempt to gain clout. Sign me up, he said. So it's that that's the kind of feedback I got. I got a lot of questions about like, do we have to start flying Spirit Airlines now? So it was, it was interesting, but
Oh my
but it's
God.
all worked out great. And the first book did well, and I've even started to do like some speaking and performance type stuff. So it's been like just a crazy fun, second chapter and adventure at this point in my life, and I'm very lucky.
Yeah, be honest here, because people are going to think this. Was your wife like the 17th employee at NVIDIA? So none of this matters, or
No, no, she wasn't. She's a lawyer. She makes some money, but she wasn't. I mean, my job was pretty good. I was like on the leadership team of my company, and it was like, I was doing well. So it was definitely a trade off. But like, it's like everything in life is a trade off, yeah, like I said, I was lucky. I did this at a time in my life when it would be different if I was like just starting out in my 20s
right?
or whatever. Like, hey, can I make a whole life out of this type of thing? I didn't have to do that. It's more like, hey, could this be like a bridge to retirement? And if it goes totally south, I guess I could always go back to the corporate world, but I'm not planning to do that. So,
What year did you leave? What year did you leave the corporate world?
so it's been almost 3 years now. So it'll be 2023.
So when you went into your boss at the big grocery chain and you said, "Hey, I'm gonna resign." What did he say?
Yeah.
Like, Leighton, what are you talking about, Leighton? What kind of nonsense is this? Like, what was the response when you told him you were leaving and why you were leaving?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he and others were definitely surprised. I mean, I didn't at the time I didn't pitch it as like, hey, I'm going to do this social media thing full time. It was more like, hey, I'm retiring, essentially, and I want to, do some other things, spend some more time with the family, pursue this thing. But it wasn't like I didn't explicitly say like, hey, I'm doing it for this. It was more like, hey, I'm done. So, but people, no, people. People were surprised, just like they were when I started popping up on their phones. But it's cool because then people have followed me and supported me, and yeah. So I've met lots of new interesting people through this. But
Yeah. I mean, when you started this out, as you said, you started out, it was COVID, it was fun. Let's see what happens. But then as it gains steam and so many dads like me, like all the, thousands of dads who are reaching out to you, we identify with what you're saying. So at some point, without getting serious on a silly conversation, but at some point, did it take on a bigger meaning? Did you start thinking of how you're helping, dads laugh at ourselves while going through the very similar things?
Sure. I mean, that's really the whole reason I do it is I mean, it's not that deep, but like just to bring people a moment of laughter or to smile during the day. Like that's because I think laughter is really important. It's an important part of like, keeping stress levels, in check and getting through things. And so if I can do that at scale and give a lot of people a laugh, during the day, like that's amazing. I'm happy to be able to do that. What I hear a lot from parents, dads, and moms is like, especially with the teenager content, is oh wow, I guess my kid's normal. I thought my
Yeah.
kid was like something was wrong with my kid, or I was like the worst parent in the world. But apparently we're perfectly average and everything's good, and I feel better about my parenting as a result. And so I feel good to be able to do that because you only have you don't know like what's normal with your parent because you don't have a ton of experience and you have no experience before your first kid. And so to be able to like connect with other parents, and this happens like in the comment section of my social media posts. That's yeah, I think that's cool, and I think that helps people a little bit.
Yeah. Does your wife, as an attorney, does she vet all of the content that you reference her in, or?
No, well, yeah. The thing is, I used to do more marriage related content. Like one of the big series I got known for early on was like things I've apologized to my wife
That
for.
it's so good. It's so good.
It's
I'm
yeah, it's
breathing
like
too much. I love it.
yeah. No, it's basic stuff like breathing too much, or that time I was I had sprained my ankle. I had one of those walking boots, and I was got some feedback. I was limping too loudly going up the stairs. It's that kind of stuff. Standing in front of the kitchen drawer she wanted to open. So anyway, that stuff kind of took off for the reasons you said. And I don't do as much of that now. I've pivoted more to the teenager stuff because that's really like I don't know. I'm more known for that. But yeah, at one point, like a year or so ago, my wife Lisa was like. Hey, you haven't done any marriage stuff recently. You should do something, around that again. I was like, oh, interesting. I posted posted something. She was like, why'd you post that? What is this? What do you do? So, you can't win, but anyway.
You can't win. I love it. So in the new book, Dad, can you not?
Mm,
Um, you create the dad meter.
yeah, yeah.
Explain the dad meter to the listeners. Yeah, what is it and how does it work?
Yeah, so the book subtitle of the book is, a dad's guide to being less cringy. So I figure there's a lot of guys out there who could probably use this. And one of the things, so the book's full of like hundreds of examples of like funny things that real dads did. Like there's a guy who he ate an entire bowl of Thousand Island dressing because he thought it was soup. It's that those kind of moves. But but I have quizzes throughout the book, and I rate them on my dad meter, which there's basically three levels to the scale. It's basic, mid, and extra. So those are kind of like teenager type terms, but like
Yeah,
I tell you
100%
whether
are. Yeah.
I tell you whether the I can just like the way I describe it in the intro is like like getting to the airport 4 hours early. That's like a basic dad behavior. A lot of people do it. Kind of known for it. Owning a flashlight the size of a small car. That's like a mid dad behavior. You're starting to get more interesting. And then like grills during a polar vortex or hurricane. That would be like extra. That's like classic dad. So I have examples throughout the book, and you can take quizzes and grade yourself on the dad meter. And so I think it's kind of fun.
How did it? It's a brilliant idea. Like, and it's fun. And it's like a 140-page book. It's a quick, enjoyable, relaxing read. It's awesome. But like, you know, you had What Time Is Noon. This book came out. What was the thinking behind it? Because you already have this very successful online platform. Just to memorialize it, reach different people. What was the thinking behind turning this into a book twice?
Yeah, I mean, it actually wasn't something I was thinking about, and when things started to pick up and I was getting some media coverage, I just like called a few people that I know in different fields. Like I called somebody who's like in like Hollywood. I called somebody who's in the book publishing world. I called somebody in PR. I just was like, hey, where would you like? What do you think? Where would you go with this? And like several of them said, "Oh, you should write a book. That's the next natural thing to the platform." And I was like, "Oh, I actually wasn't thinking about that at all." And the more I thought about it, and they talked about how like at the time publishers were trying to figure out how to tap into social media and like leverage that, but I think they were struggling because a lot of people who are really popular on social media, their stuff doesn't really translate to the printed page. But the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, mine actually could, because a lot of my posts literally are just words that people are reading on the screen. And so I My literary agent is also a NESCAC grad, as you are. She went to
Yeah.
Bowdoin too, Jillian McKenzie, and I know her. She was one of the people I talked to, and was like, "Hey, I'd love to represent you." I was like, I was like, that would be amazing. And so we, yeah, went through the process and developed the first book, and which is called "What Time Is Noon," which is like all teenager texts, and that yeah, did really well. And then this next one, I thought I would turn the tables a little bit and sort of make fun of myself and other dads. But I also include lots of teenager texts in this next book too. So there's plenty of that.
I love it. Has Bowdoin had you back for like an alumni weekend or
Yeah, you know what I did? I performed at it was reunion weekend this last year. It was really fun. So yeah, it was good. I've done a little bit of performing at colleges at like parents weekend and reunion weekend kind of stuff because the parents of college kids are like my core audience. So it's pretty fun to do that.
That's pretty fun. Now, you said before we came on that your daughter is a senior in high school, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she can drive, presumably. But like when her friends come over or you see her friends and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Leighton, da da da," what is the reaction that her friends have that it probably makes her cringe? But how do her friends relate to what you're doing?
Yeah, I don't know. She keeps them mostly away from the house, probably for that reason. But no, that is one of the funny and cringier aspects of this. Like when it started to take off, was like her teachers are like following me and her friends and stuff, and so they obviously think I'm funny, but she can't think I'm funny because she's related to me. So it is yeah, it is I yeah, it's a weird dynamic, but I don't know. I like to think that secretly, both my kids sort of, are proud of it or think it's get a kick out of it, but they wouldn't really tell me that. I don't think.
What do you think? It's such a great story, and it honestly, like, you bring so much joy to dads like me. So that alone is just a real gift. But what's been the hardest part of this of the past 5-6 years?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, in general, it hasn't been hard. It's been a great, privilege and a lot of fun. I mean, it's certainly the last year that I was working full time and doing this, like it was a lot. And I sort of tentatively planned on leaving, but I sort of gave myself a year to see if the decision made sense and to see how it played out. And so that was a lot. But then, I mean, the other thing is like, just, it's a little bit like I said, I think I said earlier, I'm an introvert. So, I mean, you are putting yourself out there and, there's, I mean, stuff on the internet lives forever. So you don't want to, I do get nervous that I'll do something that's like, that I wish I hadn't, put out there or whatever. I try to be pretty careful and I don't, I think I was saying before we started taping, like I keep the whole platform PG-13 because I know that there's like kids and, parents and teachers and stuff like that. Watching it and you never know how stuff is going to age, right? So it's so I'm a little bit of a I'm not like famous but I'm a little bit of a public figure, I guess, and so it's just that's a little bit I don't know, a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm not complaining at all.
Yeah. This has been great, Chip. One question you touched on a little bit, but when you think about, you know, what you've learned about yourself as a dad on this journey that the rest of us should also learn, what are some of the things that come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably a couple things. One is I think I'm fairly typical, right? Like I mentioned that when I started posting about my life, like, oh, there's all these thousands or millions of people that relate to it. And so like, hey, I'm not, yeah, I've got a lot of people that are just like me that think, have the same kind of experiences. And there's something, I don't know, comforting about that. The other thing is in terms of like, parenting advice or whatever because I do a lot of like teenage text related posts that look like I'm featuring like dumb questions or whatever, and so and I always like to stress like I'm not trying to make fun of kids. I'm trying to celebrate teen humor because I think they're really fun, and I'm not trying to criticize parents because I don't think parents are generally doing anything wrong, but like but I always try to like tell parents like I wouldn't sweat the small stuff. Like I wouldn't worry if your kid doesn't know how to mail a letter. Like I do a lot of texts around like crazy questions about stamps and stuff like that. Like, can I use a Christmas stamp in July? That kind of stuff. Like I wouldn't stress if your kid doesn't know how to like mail a letter or like isn't an expert at laundry or can't write a check or whatever. Cause like they'll figure that stuff out. That's not the important stuff. And they could look that up on TikTok or YouTube, but it's kind of nice actually when they ask you because they feel comfortable and, it's a way of connecting with them. But I just think like as a dad, you gotta like just, focus on the important stuff with your kids. Like, teaching them how to be a good person and treat others well. And I wouldn't beat yourself up if they don't know, if they don't know how to write a check or whatever.
I love it. I love it. Chip Leighton, thank you for being in my feed. I hope you're in my feed for a long, long time. Author of the forthcoming book, Dad, Can You Not? A Dad's Guide to Being Less Cringy. I've thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed talking today. So thank you very much.
That was really fun. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Company of Dads podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in week after week. Just want to use this moment here to thank the people who make it possible. Number one, of course, Helder Mira, who is our podcast editor. We also have Skip Cherryholmes, who many of you know from the Lead Dad Diaries. He's taken over our social media. Terry Brennan is helping us with our audience development, and Emily Servin is there each and every day helping with the web development. I can't do any of this without an amazing board of advisors. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who help, and I want to say thank you to everyone who listens. And hopefully you'll tune in again next week. Thanks so much.